something huge coming up, which is a documentary about P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy.
Yeah.
Did he do it, right?
I know
he did it. You've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it.
In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes. Something massive is brewing. A documentary on P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Yeah, did he do it? You've seen the internet. It's on fire. And you've probably seen 50 Cent loud and clear weighing in. He did it. But what really triggered Diddy, the music mogul, that untouchable icon, to suddenly collapse in court just moments after 50 Cent stepped onto the witness stand? The courtroom froze. Not a sound. Every eye locked on the man once seen as invincible. Whispers raced across the gallery, but no one dared say it out loud. Was it panic? Pressure? Or was something buried, something dangerous, suddenly pulled into the light? As 50 Cent's name echoed in the chamber, the energy shifted. Heavy, suffocating. This man, once a collaborator, once a fierce rival, now stared ahead. Calm, unreadable, possibly holding the one thing that could unravel everything. More than 20 years of buried truths, shady encounters, and a silent war of power and betrayal between these 2 giants, all hanging by a thread. A chair scraped the floor, breath caught in throats, the flash of cameras fired wildly, and Diddy, once the king, collapsed, still, silent, as if the weight of truth had struck him down. What had 50 revealed? Was this the turning point? Was this the day the veil finally lifted and the darkness beneath the empire was exposed for all to see and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring in the sun?
Has made Sean Combs a little bit nervous.
To me on that, when you said, he looked like the gay homie, I didn't know what you were talking about.
Stop. Then he was like, so when we gonna get the chance to, to kick it, like we could just hang out. We gotta kick it.
This is
Puff.
Okay.
He telling me we gotta kick it. Then he was like, why don't we go shopping? I mean, I pay for it. And I was like, this
As 50 Cent rose and made his way to the witness box, the entire room seemed to tighten. The judge raised an eyebrow, her eyes locked on every movement. Diddy, seated with his attorneys, was mid-conversation, then froze. He looked up, pale. His hands, once steady as he scribbled notes all trial, now shook visibly. Didn't even glance at Diddy. He sat down, face stern, eyes forward, as if confronting a moment he'd been waiting for all his life. "I'm here to tell the truth," 50 said. Voice steady, low, firm. The judge gave a single nod. "Proceed." And just like that, the courtroom shifted. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't blog chatter. What 50 Cent held was evidence. Details he had quietly collected for years. Calculated, patient, waiting for this exact moment. Diddy's lawyer jumped up, voice raised, objecting. 50 Cent wasn't listed as a witness. His testimony wasn't relevant, but the prosecutor, calmly countered. New evidence, recently uncovered, directly linked to claims of extortion and severe misconduct. After a quick sidebar, the judge ruled. Objection overruled. Mr. Curtis Jackson, you may continue. And with that, the room went still. The faint hum of the air conditioning overhead suddenly became noticeable. The silence in the courtroom was that intense. Reporters in the front row, pens frozen midair, stared at the witness box. Diddy's family there to show support, exchanged tense glances, their fingers tightly laced. 50 Cent leaned in toward the microphone, eyes locked on the jury, his voice low but filled with weight. "What I'm about to share," he began, "isn't gossip. It's not secondhand talk. I have proof. Recordings from back in 2003. I've held on to them for over 10 years. A quiet ripple moved through the courtroom. Murmurs, unsure but urgent. Diddy's lawyer shifted again, preparing to object. But Diddy reached out, placed a hand on his shoulder. No words, just a signal. Let it play out. He seemed to know what was coming. The prosecutor stepped forward, laying down a laptop and several hard drives onto the evidence table like loaded weapons. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "these recordings have been authenticated by 3 independent audio analysts. No edits, no tampering. They directly back the statements of several victims." The judge reviewed the supporting documents. then gave a single nod. Proceed. Sen took a breath. Long, heavy. You could see the years behind his eyes. I've kept quiet for too long, he said, voice firm but weary. I built my music empire. I made hit shows. I ran multi-million-dollar businesses. But none of that erased what I saw, what I lived through, and who was behind it. He glanced toward Diddy, not with anger, but with something colder, disappointment. It was you. He told the court how it began, a simple invite, something typical in the industry, a chance to rub shoulders at one of Diddy's infamous Hamptons parties. Back then, I was still getting my footing in the game, 50 said, getting invited to a Diddy party. That was big. I didn't question it, but the moment he entered that massive walled-off mansion, something felt wrong. Security at the door. Phones taken. Inside, guests avoided eye contact. The music was loud, almost too loud, drowning out voices. Hidden cameras tucked neatly into the decor caught 50's attention. They told us it was for safety because of the celebrities, he said. But I knew better. It felt like we were being watched for control, not protection. He described how the deeper he went into the house, the thinner the crowd became. Guards at the doors, eyes everywhere. And then Diddy approached. He looked me dead in the face and said, I decide who wins and who disappears in this industry. Everyone here knows that. That moment burned into 50 Cent's mind. Back then, I was still healing from being shot 9 times. I was hungry to succeed, but I wasn't about to sell my soul. So I started recording every interaction, every party, just in case. He described using a small recorder tucked into his jacket, eventually upgrading to better tech. Didn't know what I'd use them for, but I knew one day I might need to protect myself. The judge interrupted calmly. Did you have consent to record? In New York, only one party needs to consent, and I did, 50 replied. And none of this happened behind closed doors. These were public parties with dozens of people, Diddy's. Lawyer objected sharply, calling it a breach of privacy, but the prosecutor stood firm. These were recordings of criminal behavior. That overruled any privacy argument. After reviewing, the judge made his decision. Only recordings directly related to the charges will be admitted. Then 50 Cent revealed something new. 3 months ago, after seeing footage of Diddy assaulting Cassie in a hotel, he finally turned over everything. That video was the final straw, he said. I realized this wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern, and I had proof. The prosecutor cued the first recording from August 2003. Diddy's hand gripped his water glass. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The audio played. Distorted, but unmistakable. Diddy's voice. No one leaves until I say so. No one tells me no. Do you understand? A soft, trembling female voice responded. Please, I just want to go home. Then Diddy again, colder. You'll leave when I'm done. That's how this works. Cent's jaw tightened. That was at a party after the 2003 MTV Awards. He said, I was in the next room. Cent continued, his voice calm but burdened with emotion, describing how he overheard the exchange from the next room. The woman, a model brought in by one of Diddy's associates, simply wanted to leave, but he wouldn't let her. Then came a 2007 recording. Diddy's voice cut through the courtroom. Cold, calculated. I own everyone here. I built you. I can break you just as fast. Don't push me. 50 identified background voices, familiar ones, artists once signed to Bad Boy Records. It was during a tense studio session. According to 50, Diddy didn't just issue creative demands, he threatened lives. Each recording felt like another piece in a much darker puzzle, a picture slowly revealing years of control, silence, and fear. A 2012 clip captured Diddy's preparations for what he called a special weekend gathering. His words, collect all phones. Same setup as before, double the amount from last time. Make sure they sign NDAs before they step inside. When someone asked about guests, Diddy responded flatly, they don't have a choice. If they want to keep working, they follow orders. The atmosphere in the courtroom was getting heavier by the minute. Diddy sat slouched, barely making eye contact, sweat collecting on his forehead. His lawyer continued to argue the tapes lacked context, but the judge allowed the trial to proceed. Then the 2016 recording played, a moment that froze the entire room. It was just weeks before the Cassie incident. Diddy's voice echoed, she's starting to act like she's got a say, like she can make choices. I need to remind her who's in charge. Another man asked, "What you planning to do?" Diddy replied, chillingly calm. "Whatever I have to." She knows the cost of disobedience. Silence blanketed the courtroom. Jurors shifted. Cassie's legal team frantically exchanged notes. Then 50 Cent clarified. The audio came from a private dinner at Diddy's mansion. Only a handful of people were there. "He was talking about her and she wasn't even in the room," 50 said quietly. "I hit a mic in my watch. I had a bad feeling. I didn't know what I'd hear, but I had to record it." The prosecutor leaned in. "Did you ever try warning Miss Ventura?" 50 nodded slowly. "I reached out through mutual friends." "But Diddy had her isolated. I was scared he'd find out I was helping her." As the recordings continued, the courtroom heard a chilling timeline. Intimidation, manipulation, deals behind closed doors. Each clip aligned with previous witness. Accounts. Diddy's face grew red. His hands shook. He loosened his tie, barely holding it together. His lawyer finally rose. "Your Honor, my client is not feeling well. We request a recess." The judge granted it, but tension lingered. Every eye locked onto Diddy, who now seemed crushed by the weight of what was unfolding. But then, chaos! Diddy stood abruptly, staggered and collapsed. Gasps filled the room. Court officers rushed over. A wave of panic swept across the gallery. The judge banged the gavel, calling for order and medical attention. Diddy lay motionless, pale and trembling, breathing hard, his eyes tightly shut as though confronting the wreckage of his past. On the stand, 50 Cent remained seated, his expression unreadable, carrying both sorrow and quiet determination as he watched his former peer crumble before him. The next morning, court resumed under a cloud of unease. Diddy returned looking fragile, his eyes sunken, his posture slightly hunched. A medical report cited stress and dehydration, but declared him fit to proceed. His team asked for a delay. The judge denied it. This trial will continue. Cent returned to the witness stand, his voice soft, his eyes distant. "In 2009, he said slowly, I followed Diddy into a private lounge at a New York event. Thought it was to talk business." He paused, emotion catching in his throat. "But what I saw, I can't unsee." He exhaled. "There were girls, young. Some looked like they were about to faint, their eyes vacant. Some I recognized from video shoots. Others clearly wanted to leave, but didn't know how." He swallowed hard. "And Diddy, he just stood there." "Al orchestrating the whole thing like it was just business as usual," 50 Cent said, his voice firm but tinged with regret. "A few days later, I got a call from a blocked number. The voice on the other end was cold. 'I know what you saw. Keep quiet if you want to go far.' Then they hung up." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the jury. "At first, I brushed it off like it was just intimidation. But then, a package showed up at my house. Inside was a USB drive. He hesitated, then plugged it in. It was our footage from that same night. I didn't even remember going into that room, but there I was, in the far corner, just standing, watching. Then from behind the camera, Diddy's voice. Now I've got something on everybody here." That's how you keep things in check. Cent took a deep breath, visibly holding something back. That fear? I'd never felt anything like it. That's when I realized I wasn't just there by chance. I was meant to be seen. It was leverage. From that moment, he began documenting everything. Not just to protect myself, he explained, but for the people who didn't have a voice. The ones too scared to speak. I told myself if I ever got enough proof, I'd expose it all. The prosecutor then introduced more recordings, this time spanning from 2010 to 2020. Each one peeled back another layer of how Diddy allegedly kept a grip on artists, staff, and associates. In one 2014 audio clip, Diddy's voice was cold and calculated. Money's not enough. It runs out. Fame fades. The real key is holding something over people. That's where the power is. Cent nodded slowly. That wasn't a one-time comment. That was his mindset. It bled into everything. Contracts, conversations, deals. He didn't just want control, he needed it, and people knew what could happen if they pushed back. When asked about specific victims or witnesses, 50 mentioned several familiar names. Artists who had been pressured, some who quietly left the industry, and others who remained silent. It wasn't just about what he did, 50 said, scanning the room. It was the fear he created. Nobody wanted to be the next one blacklisted. He recalled how Diddy mixed manipulation with luxury, lavish gifts, exotic trips, expensive dinners. It made you feel like you were chosen, he explained. But then he'd casually mention someone who crossed him and disappeared. The message was always clear. This could be you. The recordings also detailed efforts to silence witnesses, destroy evidence, and twist narratives. Jurors leaned forward, some furiously taking notes, others glancing at Diddy, who sat still, expression unreadable, occasionally whispering to his attorney. Then 50 Cent spoke about the delay in coming forward. I waited because I needed proof no one could question. Just my word wouldn't have been enough. I knew they'd try to discredit me. His voice softened. But when I saw that video of Diddy and Cassie, I couldn't ignore it anymore. That could have been anyone. That could have been me. He described the fallout from distancing himself. Radio stations pulling his songs, longtime associates turning cold, whispers that he was bitter or difficult. It was subtle, he said with a sad smile. But I knew what it was. Pressure. He pivoted, explaining how he built his own path. TV shows, liquor business, all to escape Diddy's reach. Then the courtroom heard a 2019 recording. He thinks he's untouchable now. Nobody is. 50 said calmly, as I became harder to control, he turned to easier targets. But he never forgot I stood up to him. When asked what made him finally submit the evidence, 50 looked directly at the jury. I stayed quiet for a decade. Told myself it wasn't my problem. But after that hotel video and hearing Diddy's team was trying to bury it, I couldn't live with myself. He recounted the night he made the decision. I couldn't sleep. All I could see were faces. People from those parties, victims, people who vanished from the industry. I called the FBI and told them I had everything. I was ready. Looking directly at the jury, he said, I'm not just a witness. Staying silent made me part of it. I'm here now to fix that. He turned to Diddy, his voice sharp, resolute. You built an empire off manipulation. You called it loyalty, but it was a prison. And you locked everyone inside. Diddy didn't respond. He stared ahead, eyes empty. At 50 Cent stood tall, the silence around him saying more than any words could. He had waited years to speak, and now the truth, no matter how long buried, was finally echoing through the courtroom. As 50 Cent stepped down from the stand, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small weathered item, a mini cassette recorder long outdated. Holding it up, his gaze steady, he said, "This was the first device I used to record back in 2003 when I first started noticing what was happening." His voice rang clear in the courtroom. It reminds me that unchecked power can do real harm. Turning toward the jury, his expression was solemn. This isn't just about parties or one incident or even me, he said, the weight of his words echoing. It's about a system that protects silence, that shields the powerful, even as others suffer in the shadows. And if we don't confront that, it doesn't stop. It just keeps hurting people. Then he locked eyes with Diddy, his tone sharpening. You said no one could stop you, but the truth can. Cent gathered his things, his face marked by fatigue, but his posture firm. As he left the stand, Diddy remained seated, face pale, hands trembling slightly against the table. For the first time in years, he didn't command the room. He barely seemed present in it. The prosecutor stepped forward, her voice even and direct. Mr. Jackson, based on everything you've witnessed and recorded over the past 10 years, do you believe Mr. Combs still poses a danger to others? Without pause, 50 Cent responded, yes. As long as he has money, power, and people backing him, yes. The system that protected him is still very real, and too many are still afraid. Just then, as 50 Cent exited the stand, Diddy suddenly stood. His eyes darted around, panic-stricken. Security tensed, preparing to intervene. But before they did, I could act. Diddy's eyes rolled back and his body swayed, then collapsed. Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge immediately called for order. Medical staff rushed in as the room erupted into confusion. Diddy lay motionless, barely breathing, as paramedics placed him on a stretcher. His legal team clustered nearby, faces drawn and worried. Reporters were hurried out, but not before capturing one last image, the once feared mogul being carried out of the courtroom. Outside, word of the collapse and 50 Cent's testimony spread rapidly. A crowd had gathered, As he stepped through the courthouse doors, a sudden wave of applause broke out. Raw, unplanned, genuine. 50 Cent didn't acknowledge it. His face was distant, mind elsewhere. He walked straight to a waiting car, flanked by his security team. A reporter shouted, "Do you think justice will be served?" He paused briefly, turned back, and answered in a low, deliberate voice, "That's not up to me. The jury decides." He climbed into the car and disappeared down the street. No victory speech, no celebration, just silence. The silence of a man who had finally unburdened himself, but still carried the weight of the years he stayed quiet. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere remained thick. Some jurors wiped away quiet tears. The judge, composed but deeply reflective, looked out at the room with something close to sadness. Diddy, just moments before so defiant, had for the first time looked defeated. Outside, 50 Cent avoided the press entirely. He didn't stop for photos, didn't wave. He walked straight through the building's front entrance, his head held high, but his face worn with exhaustion, like someone who had just dragged a decade of truth into the light. When asked later, in a private interview how he felt, 50 Cent said simply, "There's no peace in this, just truth. And it should have been told a long time ago." Beyond the courtroom, shockwaves rippled across the entertainment world. Executives held emergency meetings, halting projects tied to Diddy. PR firms sent out internal guidance, "Do not comment." Celebrities who once praised him now issued cautious, sanitized statements of concern. Old videos were rewatched, once dismissed. Rumors now felt hauntingly credible. Photos from Diddy's legendary parties were scrutinized, the uneasy glances of young artists reinterpreted with fresh context. What was once brushed off as gossip now hung heavy with implication. And through it all, fans found themselves grappling with a harsh realization. 50 Cent, loud, brash, fearless, had been carrying this burden for years. Quietly, carefully, alone. Why hadn't anyone listened sooner? Why were his warnings dismissed as rivalry or ego? The glitter had obscured the rot. Diddy remained hospitalized for 3 days following his second collapse. His legal team filed a motion to dismiss the trial on medical grounds. The judge reviewed the reports and ruled swiftly. The trial will continue next week, with or without the defendant present. Leaked documents suggested Diddy was suffering from extreme stress, high blood pressure, and arrhythmia. Some said it was genuine. Others called it damage control, a tactic to win sympathy. Meanwhile, public debate ignited over 50 Cent's decade of silence. Some held him a hero, applauding his courage and foresight. Others criticized the delay. "If you had all that proof, why wait?" In a rare statement to the press, 50 responded, "Because one tape can be twisted, but 10 years of evidence tells the truth. I waited so they couldn't deny it." Legal experts echoed his sentiment. Attorney Marcia Johnson commented, "The recordings don't just back up the victims, they reveal a pattern consistent and calculated." Former prosecutor Thomas Reynolds added, "This isn't just about one man. The prosecution is laying bare an entire structure built on fear, control, and silence." The trial of Sean Combs, better known as Diddy, has captured global attention as 50 Cent took the witness stand, armed with over a decade's worth of secret recordings. The courtroom grew tense. The moment his first testimony began, Diddy, once a seemingly untouchable giant in the music world, collapsed mid-session, shocking everyone. Speaking with calm determination, 50 Cent described disturbing scenes, unsettling parties, subtle threats, and strange moments he witnessed at Diddy's events. Each recording revealed a deeper pattern, a network of control, fear, and manipulation that Diddy allegedly wielded over his inner circle. When Diddy returned to court, he looked visibly shaken, no longer the larger-than-life figure he once portrayed. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's testimony, strengthened by years of recordings, didn't just highlight the allegations, it exposed the machinery behind it all. Public and industry reactions exploded. What started as accusations had now grown into a full-blown reckoning. And 50 Cent? His stand wasn't just about settling scores, it was a message, a reminder that courage, even from one person, can start to shake systems that seemed unmovable. His words prompt a hard look at ourselves. What do we do when we witness abuse of power? Staying silent is easy, but speaking up, no matter how small can start a ripple, whether it's a friend, coworker, or stranger. Noticing something and choosing to care could change someone's entire life. This story forces us to examine the spaces we move through. The glossy surface of fame often hides darker truths. But as 50 Cent proved, you don't have to be on a witness stand to make an impact. Start where you are, speak when it's needed, refuse to enable harm, and show others it's possible to do the same. This courtroom drama is far from over. The jury's decision still hangs in the balance. Will justice finally be served? And just as the world tries to catch its breath, a shocking update: an anonymous witness once warned by 50 Cent through a text is now ready to come forward. What deeper secrets of the entertainment world might their story reveal next?